Okay, let's unpack this concept today. Ugliness. It sounds simple, maybe.
Hmm. Not really when you dig into it. The sources define it, right? The degree to which a person's physical features are considered aesthetically unfavorable.
Yeah, basically, unpleasant to look upon, leading to a highly unfavorable evaluation. But we're going way beyond just that simple definition here.
Definitely. We're touching on philosophy, history, even the law.
And prejudice, too. It gets quite complex. The sources you brought give us a lot to work with, so this should be a really interesting deep dive for you listening.
It should. And what strikes me immediately is how that definition, aesthetically unfavorable, starts to wobble pretty quickly.
How so?
Well, just thinking about how much beauty standards change over time and like across different cultures. What's unpleasant isn't exactly fixed, is it?
That's a great point. And speaking of perspective, the sources jump right into thinkers who grappled with this personally, like Jean-Paul Sartre.
Right, the existentialist philosopher.
Exactly. He apparently believed his whole philosophical output was tied to his lifelong feeling of being, well, ugly. He had strabismus, the eye condition, and an asymmetrical face.
And that really underscores how much our physical selves can shape our inner world, doesn't it? Our
Yeah.
sense of self, how we interact. It's not just superficial.
Not at all. It suggests this external thing, our looks, can become this like powerful internal driver for our thoughts, our ideas.
Yeah, his whole worldview, maybe.
Then you've got Socrates, also apparently not a conventional looker back in the day.
Right. But he had a different take.
He did. He thought philosophy was the answer, like a way to overcome or transcend the outward appearance.
Almost like saying, focus on the ideas, not the face.
Huh, maybe. It does make you wonder, though, does focusing too much on looks distract us from, I don't know, deeper things?
Socrates certainly seemed to think so. That inner wisdom, virtue,
Huh.
that's what really mattered. Much
Mhm.
more than just, physical beauty.
Okay, so let's switch from philosophy, history. Abraham Lincoln comes up.
Ah, yes. And the descriptions of him back then were pretty harsh.
Right. One source calls him ugly, even grotesque. That's intense.
It really is. Gives you a sense of the strong, maybe negative first impression he made on some people. Again, different times, different standards.
And this is the fascinating part, his own law partner, William Herndon, painted a different picture.
hmm More nuanced.
Yeah, he called him homely, careless of his looks, lacking pomp or dignity. But crucially,
It helped him.
exactly, Herndon said Lincoln's appearance actually proved to be an asset. In his relationships, his politics, it created sympathy, helped him succeed.
That's such a key insight, isn't it? It completely flips the script. What seems like a disadvantage can actually become a strength.
It makes him seem more human, relatable.
Perhaps. More down to earth, less intimidating than someone perfectly polished,
Hmm.
maybe more trustworthy to some voters. It really challenges that automatic link between conventional attractiveness and success.
It absolutely does. Now, the sources also briefly mentioned theology.
Right? How ugliness got tied up with some dangerous stereotypes within Christian history.
So, associating appearance with morality or spirituality.
Seems like it.
Hmm.
And understanding that history helps explain where some modern prejudices might stem from, these things can get deeply ingrained over centuries.
Which brings us right to prejudice. Lookism. That's the main term.
Lookism, yeah.
And the sources mention others too, like cacophobia and eschemophobia, specific words for discrimination based on unattractiveness.
And it can overlap with ableism, too, especially concerning disfigurement.
Absolutely. Having these terms really shows it's a recognized phenomenon. It's not just like personal taste, it's a societal bias with real
The
consequences.
consequences like, well, the sources mention pterophobia.
Ah, yes. The fear or aversion towards people who look maybe monstrous or disfigured.
And how that fear can lead to bullying. That's awful.
It is, and it highlights the psychological impact, not just on the person being judged, but also on the person doing the judging, driven by that fear. Understanding that fear, even if it's irrational, might be key to tackling the bullying that comes from it.
Could be. And then there's the whole dating scene.
Oh, yeah. The sources call it the superficiality there, how looks often dominate first impressions.
It's sort of acknowledged as a flaw in how we often approach relationships, isn't it? Judging the book by its cover.
Definitely. And while that initial visual spark might be common, relying only on that, well, it's limiting.
You miss out on the deeper stuff, right? Shared values, connection, the things that actually make relationships last.
Exactly. But the consequences can be even more serious. The sources point to research suggesting a sentencing disparity.
Oof. Yeah. That's pretty disturbing. The idea that someone considered less attractive might get treated more harshly by the legal system.
How could that even happen? Are we talking unconscious bias from judges or juries?
That's the theory researchers are exploring. It's not definitive, but studies suggest a correlation. Maybe an unconscious perception that someone less attractive is, I don't know, more likely to be guilty or less deserving of sympathy.
Wow. That really raises serious questions about fairness and equality under the law.
It certainly does. And then there's this interesting idea from Gretchen Henderson.
What's that?
She talks about a cultural suspicion towards both beauty and ugliness.
Both, not just ugliness.
Yeah, like maybe extreme beauty is seen as intimidating or maybe fake or untrustworthy somehow, and ugliness, as we've seen, triggers those negative stereotypes.
So we're suspicious of both ends of the spectrum. That's
This
complex.
really highlights how much anxiety and judgment we project onto appearance, doesn't it?
It does. So given all this bias, what about the law? Is anything being done?
Well, it's interesting. Victoria, the state in Australia, actually made Lookism illegal way back in 1995.
Really? That far back?
Yep. Which was quite forward-thinking.
Yeah.
Legally recognizing it sends a message that it's not acceptable.
And what about here in the U.S.?
The sources say several states and major cities have passed laws against appearance-related discrimination, too. So there's some movement.
It's gaining recognition then. The sources also mention ugly laws historically.
Ah, yes. Thankfully, those are gone now. But they were actual laws in the past that basically banned people deemed unsightly or disfigured from appearing in public.
That's unbelievable.
It is. And it shows how deeply tied legal systems have been to societal ideas about who looks acceptable. The repeal is progress, obviously, but the fact we still need anti-discrimination laws shows the bias hasn't vanished.
Okay, so pulling this all together, ugliness. It's clearly not just about looks.
Not even close. It's philosophical, it's historical, it's deeply social with things like lookism and ableism, and it even has these concrete legal dimensions.
What really comes through is that how we perceive appearance isn't shallow. It's tangled up with our psychology, history, society, even the justice system.
Exactly. Seeing that complexity helps us understand it not just as personal taste, but as, well, a significant social and ethical issue.
So for you listening, here's something to mull over. This cultural suspicion towards both beauty and ugliness that Gretchen Henderson mentioned, how does that play out in your world? How do your own judgments about appearance, yours and others, shape things? And knowing how much culture shapes these very personal feelings, what might change if we really sat with that complexity?
Yeah, it's definitely something worth reflecting on. How much is innate, how much is learned, and what does it all mean for how we treat each other?